Coming up on Gunter's Universe, we talk with VR industry insider and expert Jon Oakes. Jon has a background in business development and for bringing emerging technologies to the enterprise space. Currently, Jon is working in VR education at San Jose State University. I'm highly looking forward to learning all about that. Prior to that, Jon worked at SVVR, Silicon Valley VR, where he helped build connections between VR community members and industry. And while at SVVR, Jon was heavily involved in the monthly SVVR meetup, which I believe is the largest VR meetup in the world. It certainly was the first, and seen a lot of great people come through there. And it's beloved by the VR community. So this and more coming up next.
VR Chat, the next frontier. These are the experiences from Gunter's universe. His continuing mission, to seek out and connect with VR devs and passionate enthusiasts, to discuss theories, beliefs, and rhetoric of all kind, and to boldly go where no show has ever gone before.
There's some money, Bob. It's a bonus.
Bonus dice.
Hello everybody. Welcome back to Gunter's Universe. How are you and all of you guys doing tonight?
Hell yeah. Doing fine.
He's doing fine. He likes money right now. All these folks are waving in excitement. Catapult. How goes it? I know I'm wagging up my finger at you and whatnot.
Is that excitement enough?
Yeah, and me man's back. We don't care. It's great to see everybody else. And it begins and it starts right back up where it left off. Tonight we have a cool show. First, I want to say welcome to everybody watching on Twitch. Thank you so much for tuning in. You'll enjoy this show, and it happens every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, or shortly after. We start about 30 minutes late. And I want to introduce my co-host, Cause and Effects. He's kind of invisible right now, but over the next week or so, he will materialize fully. How's it going, Cause?
It's going pretty good. Yeah, I just need to turn solids on, but I think this looks kind of cool, being able to be a little bit transparent.
Yeah.
Value transparency.
That's right.
Is that
And
the original,
tonight-
like, Rocket Boba Fett?
I brought this in probably like three years ago,
Nice.
and recently got
from.
it back in with the help of Ghoster over there.
That's how I recognize. I used to be Tron, and you were Boba Fett for years around here, and then things changed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be an IP property myself anymore. I get to look like myself.
You are an IP property.
Yeah, I'm an IP property. I better be careful about things that I do to myself from something like that. John's over there. That's who's been speaking. Jon Oakes. How's it going, Jon? Welcome to the
Not
show.
bad.
You are our
I got
guest.
I'm so it's taken me 6 years in the VR industry, and I finally broke into Gunter's universe. I'm so excited.
I know.
I've been I've lurked at many shows. I've lurked, and it's fun to be sitting in the chair.
Yeah, we've talked about having you on years. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Let's get Bob, get Jon. Jon will come out. Jon, great to talk to. He'd love
yeah.
you. Never,
Yeah,
just
man.
never
This is-
materializes. And now
Well,
it did.
we're here now, and hopefully we'll have a good time, and we can do it again sometime. But yeah, so So what do you want to talk about?
I don't know. Is baseball still happening? Is there the Rangers taking over the Scorpions by an inning or two tonight?
Yeah, there's many
Monday
field
night
goals made.
Baseball.
Yeah.
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 That's what I
Baseball.
like to talk about. I guess. Well, two things start.
Then
and
it would be
then,
Bunter's universe. Hey.
Bunkers come up a couple times, like as you know. I got C Gunter's universe just in case there's an asshole.
Oh.
Bunter's has been it's something that's been actually viable, so I might be able to use those. Yes, yes, you can have it. I got it.
That's the adult
Nobody
site.
can have it but me. Yeah, that's the adult country. No, there's no adult. Gunter. There's no. I'm not. You cannot purchase this. It's just sold, locked up in real life here in this house. I can't go anywhere. No, that's why I have VR. John, you signed up to my Patreon. Thank you so much. But I haven't been running my Patreon for years, and until I have things rocking and rolling, I dare not charge any of my patrons until I feel like the product is where I want it to be and coming out regularly. But thanks so much. Just want to recognize the love
no
that you were
problem.
sharing there.
Yeah,
But you won't be charged. But I did charge you. You did get the bill for coming on the show, right? There's a application fee
Yeah, was
plus.
it $5,000 or something like that per minute? Yeah. No, it's better than Super
And I'll
Bowl
need to
ads,
give you
I
a
tell
1099.
Yeah. No, it's great. I'd be happy. Turn that Patreon on, man. I think you do great work, and and this is an institution. I mean, you've been doing this for almost as long as VR has been a thing. And since the 90s at least, first show was like 2016, 2015, something like that. You're an institution.
2014, I did RiftMax stuff, virtually indirect.
Right.
Yeah.
RiftMax Theater.
Before
good
VR
times.
chat. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should just talk about
anyway.
all these old times that nobody will understand what we're talking about.
That brings up something I did want to talk
that's
about
awesome
because
too.
everybody's reading History of the Future, which is a really good book, and I have nothing but nice things to say about it in terms of its entertainment value. But I really, 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 really want there to be like History of the Universe, and then I want a people's History of the Universe, because History of the Universe is definitely the Oculus story, and Oculus's story from the point of view of the people within Oculus, and that's great. And I'm so glad that he got that story out there. Because there's a lot of it I didn't know, and a lot of it I did, and there's a certain perspective to it, but it doesn't tell the story of everybody else who actually made VR matter to most people. I mean, Oculus is a great company, and they're making great HMDs, but it doesn't tell the story of the communities that sprang up, the friendships that sprang up, the indie developers that mortgaged their house to try to make it into a new industry with no expectation of actually being a financial success. And I think there's a lot of value that's come out of that. The failed companies and the successful ones, like VR chat, is a success story, and it's still early in the days. But I'd love to hear more about that story. I'd love to hear more about Valve's perspective, although they'll never tell us anything. But I'd love to hear that story. I'd love to hear, I'd love to get Carl, who's actually, I'm at SVVR right now, by the way. So Carl is over there, probably on the phone working. Oh, there's Carl. Say something really loud, Carl. Yeah, maybe later, what would be fun? After you're sick of talking to me, we'll do like a seance, and I'll try to summon the spirit of Carl Krantz into my body, and we'll get Carl Krantz, and I'll channel Carl Krantz. I'd be like the first VR medium that's channeling other souls into the metaverse. How about that?
And I got a perfect effect to go. I got a perfect effect to go along with it. So when we are ready, I will need to be prompted, and yes, we will do that.
Yeah, cool.
We'll summon
that would be
Krantz. Krantz is critical to the success of VR. The rebirth of VR is what I sort of call.
So you mentioned like my history, or just to be clear, like I'm still really involved with SVVR. I think I would have to die to leave SVR or get kicked out by Carl. But no, I'm still involved. I don't do this as a job anymore. For a couple of years, I did it as a job to help organize the conference and the meetups, and it's exhausting and thankless. They thanked me, but honestly, I'm just trying to say that Carl and Nana put their lives and souls just to keep the community alive, to keep it going, to keep VR being a real thing. That's really true. And I did that too for 2 years, and I was done. I needed to take a break, and there's a lot of other stuff that happened for me. But but I'm still here. I'm still a passionate fan of the community, and especially the indie scene. So if you're ever in the Bay Area and want to see the world's best VR community, come to a meetup every month. Look online and come find it, or you can get into a virtual world and come see it via the reality portal that we have set up. So definitely check it out. But anyway, yeah. So yeah,
I
man.
do have
so
that on my list to
we've had
ask
a long
later
trip.
about the reality portal. So, but we'll table that till then. But that
Yeah.
is exciting.
Save that for the spirit of Carl. The
Okay.
spirit of Carl will tell you about the reality portal. But anyway, so yeah, man, I was just thinking of like we could talk for 5 hours probably on our history and the events and the people that we know and have it be like gossip session. But probably should like get to that a little bit later.
Yeah, I guess I want the who is John? I don't even know. Like, were you born in this country? I assume you are. Like, just a general overview of you and your life, and were you in tech when you were younger? How did you get hooked on tech, and why the VR? Where did that come from?
I am born in Watsonville, California, just off the coast below Santa Cruz. If most people know where Santa Cruz is, and went to school in Santa Barbara, and I've always been a hardcore, like, passionate geek for all things geeky and nerdy and computers. I played Dungeons and Dragons in '77. I had my first computer was an Atari 800 with a cassette drive that I taught swim lessons and worked on the farm to save up $1,000. I got paid $1,000 for a computer with 16K of RAM, and programmed that. And started school in Santa Barbara to be computer science, and then had to. Well, basically, I was halfway through. My father passed away. Money got tight. Had to work. Couldn't keep up with computer science, so I switched to law and society, which was a lot easier and didn't have labs. So I got out of school to get a job. But then this is related to VR. So I worked for a year in a small company doing database stuff, and they got a job at CompuServe. Anybody here even old enough to remember CompuServe? Yeah. So yeah, and CompuServe was like back in the early.
I think early 90s,
yeah, so
right?
CompuServe was an online information service. It was like the very first one that was nationwide. There was a lot of bulletin boards, and people would dial in with their modems at 300 bits per second, which you guys don't even know what that is anymore because we just think
last
about
show somebody had
gigabits,
the noise. They had the just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It was
The
great.
modem noise.
Where's
Yeah.
that
so if it
person
did-
at?
So 300 bits per second was so easy to handshake. It was just one tone line. I mean, this is what I know. So 300 baud would just be like ring, and you'd be in. That'd be it. Really short. 9600 baud would take like crazy stuff. Anyway, so CompuServe was cool, and I got there right I started in 1990, and literally this was my first job. Go in there, and I'm like, yeah, I ran a BBS in college, which, in college I had like one phone line into my Atari 800 at 300 baud, and then I got another modem, and I ran a serial port. I get my neighbor's line, and I paid him $5 a month to run a long phone line. So at midnight, my BBS could have two lines, and then people could chat together. And it was like a magical thing, right?
Yeah.
So
That's real early.
people could dial in. That was super early, yeah. And so I was like hacking the source code on Teleguard BBS software. So anybody in the universe ever hears of Teleguard devs, I love them. But anyway, so back to CompuServe. I got this job. My first job was going to Intel to talk to the CIO about this new thing that they should really do called email. That's the thing. I went to Intel to explain.
What is that?
So Andy Grove was the CEO at the time. I got to go to his office and install, when we came out with it, with the CompuServe Information Manager on his PC, so he could dial into CompuServe and chat with people. It was kind of like these weird early days, kind of like we have now with VR, where people who were big in the industry, you could just talk to them, you could just email them. I was emailing Andy Grove. He have a question about something on CompuServe, he'd email me. And that was really cool. And I knew it was cool then, and I kind of like, kind of reveled in that. It didn't make me any money per se, but, it was like a really cool thing to be the guy that came, to support the CEO of the big company. It was across the street from us. And I went to HP, got to know all these big companies. So then here's the thing. This is like how my life kind of like looped back. We, a couple years later, like 92, 93, maybe, I was sitting in there, and I read about this thing called VRML. And Tony Parisi was the guy who like published that along with his partners, but I kind of recognize his name. And so we tried to get VRML working in CompuServe as like a primitive way of VR, because this is the time when William Gibson was hot, and I was reading everything I could at Cyberpunk. I was like, Cyberpunk future VR is going to be it.
Yep.
VPL had just kind of started up and was getting all this money, and industries were spending $400,000 on VR equipment, and I was like, this is it, man. The future Cyberpunk future is going to happen. And so anyway, what's funny is, God, I would pay anything if I had these emails, because I had sent Tony Parisi some rather primitive emails about how to get VRML working over dial-up. And I remember he was kind of mean to me on the response, because I didn't know what I was talking about, and I was just like fishing for help. So now Tony's a good friend, and he wants to see these emails too, because he says he probably was. But so we tried to get VR working back then. Then the internet happened, and you know what happened there.
Yep.
So I've been like in this game waiting for this moment for a long time. So when the Oculus Kickstarter, I was kind of following, meant to be seen. I was like lurking on those forums and kind of vaguely checking in on Road to VR every now and then, kind of waiting, kind of like in the wilderness waiting for VR to happen. And I didn't know it was going to happen when it did. But then the Kickstarter happened, and I was like, I clicked the video, and I'm watching it, and I saw Palmer's video, and it was pretty good, and I was getting tempted. And then Cormac comes on and said, his famous line, I think I've got the best VR experience ever, or whatever he said. I can't remember now, but that line, I was like, I'm buying it. And I was backer number like 1069. So I wasn't even like that close, but it was in the first hour of the Kickstarter. I've been doing it.
Awesome.
And when I got my DK1, who here had a DK1? Like, raise your hand or something. No, what? Gunter did. I know you did. Nobody else had DK1. Anyway, man, you put that DK1.
What's a DK1,
right,
John?
cool,
What the hell are you talking
you put on your
Developer kit.
Oh man, have we come so far already that people are
Yes.
the Oculus Rift Developer Kit 1? It was it's a miracle. 3 degrees of freedom, big wide field of view, very low res, huge screen door.
7-inch screen.
But it was the first time, in my life. Yeah, it was massive, but it was beautiful, man. You'd put it on. I fired up Tuscany,
first thing,
like we all did, and I walked around that house for hours. I got super sick, and then I got like this panicky feeling, like maybe VR was going to happen, and I wasn't going to be able to do it because I was getting sick.
Oh, no.
And I did, because I didn't understand. Right? Nobody understood about locomotion sickness.
Yeah.
I was just like, I was running around like a madman. The controller. There's no touch controllers. I was just like mousing around, running around like crazy, going, why do I feel so bad?
There's no positional tracking.
So I was all in.
So was that?
Yeah.
Was when you got the Oculus Connect
we
1?
kind of cut our teeth.
Was that the first time you'd ever tried VR? Or did you get to try it like back in the 90s?
Oh yeah, no. I tried it in the 90s. I tried I tried the Disneyland one, which was the Aladdin ride.
Yep.
I forget what the name of the system was. I had tried a Dactyl Nightmare one time.
I did that one.
And I had tried something at a college that I don't even remember what it was called. It was just, I was on a platform and there was geometric shapes floating around. It was probably just some project, but it was cool for back then. So no, I had tried VR before, and Oculus DK1, like many people will say, was like breathtakingly better than anything that had come before it. Right?
Sure,
it was just such a huge leap over even. I mean, I don't know what they had in secret labs, but anything that had been exposed to the public, it was just so much better. That's where
anything at a university
started. So I was like, nothing.
It was it. It sounded like it was it.
And
is it?
And now I'm much more jaded. I'm picky about screen door effects and everything. But anyway. So I knew right then I was going to be doing VR. Somehow I was going to get into the VR industry because I knew it was going to change everything. So first thing I did is I got on meetup.com and I'm like, I'm going to form a meetup. I bet you there's like at least 10 other people that got this DK1 like me. But I got on, I'm like, let me just see. So like the 1 or 2 days before me, Carl had started Silicon Valley Virtual Reality. And so I think we downloaded the list. I'm like member number 10. I'm like Cymatic Bruce is number 8. I'm like number 10 on the list of members, just organically. So we had the first meetup, And I come and it's a computer history museum. And I'm thinking, maybe there'll be like 10 or like most meetups, like maybe 10 or 15 people. But no, there was like 90 people there. Nate Mitchell was there. I didn't even know who he was. I asked him what he did. Nate Mitchell was the president of product at Oculus now, and he's the one who speaks for Oculus mostly, one of the original founders. And he was there giving a demo of the mech game. What was it called? I'm having a blank. But anyway,
like with the V,
so I'm like, hey, what's your name?
Yeah.
Hawken.
Oh, that one, the one that we never got. Yeah.
Yeah.
We never got
Yeah. But that's okay. But anyway, so I was one of the first, because early in the Kickstarter, I was one of the first to get my DK1s. So I had a kit. Amir was there demoing 6 Sense STEM, or whatever it was called, the thing that never shipped, but we did get our money back. And
it was still called STEM then.
Yes. STEM, we got our money.
So I was basically spent the whole, we had a talk and Carl gave a presentation and we started mingling. I was giving a demo of Tuscany because that's all we had. And I'm sitting next to Nate Mitchell the whole night, just talking about VR, and I had no idea who he was. It's kind of hilarious. But anyway, so yeah, then I was hooked. I was like SVVR for life because I was like a magical moment. I was like a moment where I realized I wasn't, I might be weird and on the edge, but there's a whole lot of other people who are weird on the edge with me into VR. I made a lot of good friends there.
Yeah.
And we've had over 60 consecutive monthly meetups since then. And so some of my best friends, I met Jasmine at a meetup. I met you at the first SVVR conference, I think, when you came out at the Computer History Museum, right? Was that where you were at?
I've been to all 4.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I did not go to. I wasn't at that one. Wasn't at the first one. No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I met you at one of them.
Yeah. It's one of those conferences. Or the meetup. I was at the.
I came to a meetup.
Yeah, maybe a meetup or two. Yeah.
I feel like I've known you my whole life, even though it's only been 5 years at most. But
and when we run into it, we're busy. Like, oh yeah, I'll catch up later. How you been? There's never that time that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how we are.
Anyway, so then did the indie game thing for a while and ran out of money and had to stop that. Worked at SVVR, helped run the conference with Carl and Nana for a few years, and now I'm working at San Jose State in the library, kind of doing a bunch of different things, but in terms of VR, creating a interdisciplinary hub for students and faculty to work together on projects related to VR and AR, and teaching them how they can use the technology in their curriculum or in their projects or in their research to both collaborate with each other, present data and information and media in different ways, and have different experiences that changes how they see things. So that's a big passion of mine. Is I think VR is the ultimate learning machine, and I think we should spend a lot of time and money researching that because I think it could really change humanity in that way.
Yeah, I'm right on board with you with that. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, so for like the students and faculty at the university that you work at, do you find that they're knowledgeable about VR and AR, or do you still have like a lot of teaching to do?
Yes, we here in this room are in the 1% of the 1%, right? I gave there's 4 million PSVRs out there, and that's great. And there's maybe a few million PC VR, and who knows about mobile. But honestly, for one thing, there's a lot of overlap in those populations. If you have a Rift and you're into VR, you might also have a PSVR. So there's a lot of overlap, which is fine. But VR still a game for the people with a lot of money and some time and some technical experience. I gave a class to upper division business students. There was 96 of them came in, and it was a great lesson. It was a business technology class, and the professor was great. She had never experienced VR before I gave her a demo, and she was so moved by the power of VR that she created a unit and made her students come to the lab and have a VR demo. And what they did is I put them in Google Earth, and started out with like the overview effect, right? Seeing the Earth in Google Earth VR is pretty powerful. If you imagine you've never been in VR before. And then they had to navigate their way from the Earth, the global view, down to either their house, if that's where they wanted to go, or a place that they'd like to visit in case they didn't want to show where they live, because that's fine. And then they had to take a selfie. So they're sitting there with their friends in their class, and they're these little project pods. And this one kid's like, yeah, I grew up, I was amazed. For example, he's like, yeah, I grew up in Vietnam, but I didn't grow up on land. I grew up mostly on this kind of a boat, because in the bay there, I can't remember the name of the bay, but it's just like this beautiful bay with like these huge spiky mountains, islands out in this bay, and these little boats. He's like, yeah, I pretty much grew up on these kind of boats. And here he is in San Jose studying business, upper division, and his friends didn't know that, and they got a total new appreciation for where he's from. And out of those 96 students, one had ever put on a VR headset. It was PSVR to play Beat Saber like a week before the class. So just as and this is what I'm finding, and I don't think it's San Jose State. I think it's just
that's like tech central. Like,
yeah.
That's amazing.
And these are not 17-year-old. These are like 19, 20-year-old students. So they've had a few years to be there. VR, here's the thing we have to remember. VR is hard. It's hard to get into. It's expensive. You got to have not only a gaming computer or something, you got to have space that's free for you to, like right now, I'm a king. If you guys, I'm sitting on a nice carpeted, very large room with a super powerful computer over there and high bandwidth and Mountain View. And I even got Carl there to get me a drink if I need it. I mean, this is like not typical, right? I'm not. And here's the thing.
Drink, sir.
I have a home. Yeah.
I have in a dorm room, for example.
Yeah,
like you can
exactly.
In a trailer park.
Look.
Yeah.
I have a house. I have a house, but I got a wife, 2 kids, and a dog. If I tried to do this at home, somebody's going to come ask me for something, or the dog's going to bark, or my kids are going to come run around. And I love that, but I'm lucky. Most people are not. And we have to remember that you're still blazing the trail. And a lot of these kids that I'm working with are super excited about VR, and it's not available to them except for things like what we offer in the library. And it's going to be a while before they have enough money, even for $400 for a Quest or $400 for a PSVR. Because then you got to buy all the content, you got to have the room. So VR still, if anybody says, oh, VR is mature because it sold 1 million or 2 million or 4 million or 10 million, understand that is still the very tippy tip of the iceberg. And I think once we're to a point where maybe if I do this class and half of them have done VR extensively, that's gonna be a tipping point for mass adoption. But right now we're nowhere near.
What about exceeding 10 million sales? Like, what if something exceeds 10 million or something?
No.
Easily more than that.
Yeah. No, 10 million. I mean, look.
Think of how many non-VR chat friends you have that play video games and have no idea about VR.
Yeah. And even if they think it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I know a lot of people who have VR only because of this game. I have more desktop friends than VR friends, and I know a lot of people. Yeah. So you can have the awareness of it, but there's still not that many people who actually have this or full body tracking.
Yeah.
Full body.
Yeah. Oh man, and full body. Let me just say, like, I've been in this a while. I know about Vive trackers. I know about mocap suits. We tried to get the Vive trackers working so I could turn on my feet, and it almost killed me. It was just so hard to get going for some reason. So there's problems still, but anyway. So yeah, at the library, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of really interesting projects, man. We just launched a satellite. I didn't do that. I wasn't part of this team, but we, as the university, were part of the team that launched a satellite with a VR camera on it, and it worked.
Oh, really?
But sadly, space is even harder than VR. The satellite did not survive. So they got telemetry that it captured a really cool. Oh, I just stood up.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
I hate standing up.
You have to just move back a little bit and then click on the chair.
Yeah, move behind the chair.
But I'm sitting down, so all right, there we go. All right,
There you
all right. So yeah, so we're gonna do it again, and I'm gonna hopefully I want to be a part of that team when they do it because it's exciting to see something that kids made launch into space with a VR camera on board. I was like so amazed by that. There's a lot of good research being done by these people too in kinesiology, in journalism. We got a really good journalism thing going on where they're gonna put you in a cell with a prisoner and let him tell you about the experience he's having. And we're just getting started. I'm just teaching them now about motion capture and 3D modeling and photogrammetry, and it's spurring a lot of really interesting discussions. And I think people in education really need to get up to speed on VR, even though it is so early, because the effect of putting students in VR is compelling, just from what I'm seeing in my very short time there. When you give somebody a lesson in VR, we all know this, right? This is totally a preaching to the choir, but when you have an experience in VR, you did that thing. You didn't just see that thing. Like tonight when I go home, I was here at this show with you. I didn't just watch your show. And if we're learning something and we're playing with physics or going to see a historic site or encountering somebody from another culture, we're with that person and we're doing that thing in VR. That's how we feel about it. It's how we remember it. It's only going to get better as we get better software and better hardware. So much more powerful than trying to, basically run your own meat-based simulation with your imagination. It can really anchor and give everybody a common frame of reference that they can build on for their own experiences. So I've seen that. I've heard that. I believed it, but now I've seen it firsthand, and it's kind of my new favorite thing is VR. For a long time they called it an empathy machine, and that kind of got burned out. But I will say this: I think VR is an ultimate learning machine. I really do. I think kids. There's two sides to this blade, though, right? It could go dark, but VR is a learning machine. I just don't want it to be an indoctrination machine. So I think we gotta be guardians of that.
Tool,
guardians
no
of the
what.
power of VR.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a tool we know that's going to
Blame
be.
the tool.
Can you clarify what you mean by indoctrination, Stu?
Sure. If I'm controlling your environment and pretty much most of your sensory input and your reaction to that and can monitor what your reaction is to that input, it's a pretty tight biofeedback loop for behavior modification and control. And I can present you very compelling. If I want to give you a narrative that's not necessarily based on fact, I can make that seem pretty compelling and accurate. I mean, look at the fake news problem we have. Look at the meme problem we have. And that's 2D on Facebook, which we should be dotted on. What are you going to do when it's an experience that somebody sees and feels and can visualize and reimagine in their minds as something that actually happened? I think it's pretty frightening. And but at the same time, that's the nature of any technological power. You have to consider both sides. The side for enhancing and the side for destroying what people want to bring into the world.
It's a boundary breaker technology, whether it's a good, bad. It's just breaking down boundaries, which is what all this great technology
We could have this conversation about VR. I could also have it about AI. Could have it about, we could also have the conversation about the global monetary system that we have too. I mean, there's good and bad it's on everything, and it's just a question of what you focus on and where you put your energy. That's what matters. So anyway, so all of us here, I told Gunter this earlier, but one of my main things is all of us here who are early have kind of, in my opinion, a moral imperative to make VR as positive a place as we can, because whatever we do today is going to have ripple effects throughout the next decades. And so the good stuff that you put in, like this show and making friends and building experiences that are powerful and meaningful and healthy, are going to pay dividends way into the future, because you're setting the trend. And shutting down people who want to tear that down right away, I think is going to be just as important. And there's people out there that want to just make it a troll universe, and trolling is fun among friends. I'm not saying
not
like
in
I want
Gunter's
censorship.
universe.
I don't want that, but
not in Gunter's universe. No trolling here, man.
Well, I get there's a yeah. But you can have fun and joke around, but and be
harassing, malicious,
whatever.
all
But
that stuff that I do have to deal with.
All that stuff is no
But-
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we will
And so
we will keep this place a
anyway.
good place because it needs. That's what the these social VR
I'd actually
places.
love to see it
yeah,
used more for education purposes in places like high school and university. Can you imagine how immersed you would be if you're learning about like the Romans and you would actually put in a headset and visit that time and you could see what the Roman Colosseum looks now and then walk through with the headset on of what it actually looks like with gladiators fighting and actually see the real culture. Stuff like that implemented for education, for history, to see the before and after, just like how the documentary shows how the landscape changes over time. Things like that for education would be amazing. It would grab your attention more.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it'd have an emotional impact.
It's probably
You're not
happening, right?
just-
These
Just like
things,
video.
these
Yeah.
kits and stuff are out there, and I'm sure
they're
the
starting.
results
Yeah.
are positive.
You know,
Kids
they're
like this.
starting, and they definitely do. It's definitely a good way to keep attention in a classroom. I would say that I'm a firm believer in maybe I want to proceed, but I want to proceed kind of cautiously down as we get younger and younger. So college kids, I feel like we can kind of throw anything at them and they can deal with it. I do want to be cautious, just like you would for any child, you know, what they're exposed to and all that. Like,
Like
I
older
think,
high school kids should be okay too. I think.
yeah, probably, yeah.
Like
You know,
junior, seniors?
my older high
Also
school
VR in
student
high
is
school.
pretty jaded. So
Like it's the
Um,
14, 15 and down is where you run into the issue, especially with those who play VR chat in general. It's just the structure and the comprehension just isn't there on average. There's of course exceptional people that age, but overall definitely needs monitoring.
oh, absolutely, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I'm a big believer in the educational power of VR, and I'm gonna have a good time working in this environment. I think for a little while at least, helping develop that.
You know
So-
the immersive VR education folks, right?
Yes.
Dave, and then now Mike from RiffMax.
Mike
Yeah.
Arms.
That tech is, Mike Arms, and so they've been working
Deep
on
Rifters
education
there now,
stuff.
too.
There's now Deep Rifters there, so
Yeah.
love those guys. I helped do a couple recordings, interviews with 3 different folks. One that's studying the curing of aging, and a couple others. But it was really cool because if you use their software, you can record your session and it can be played back. So there's 3 cool interviews with some guys that when the platform just launched, we had them talk to me in there, and that's really cool. And they're doing more stuff like that. And I think, I don't know his name, but he's doing a talk show, and I think that guy that just released the book, what was his name? You just mentioned about the Oculus story,
Oh, yeah. What is his name?
the book that just came out.
Yeah, that guy.
That
Yeah.
guy. Names.
Harris.
I'm in VR. I can't
Harris.
look things up. And
Harris.
yes.
Was it Rob?
So yeah, he's going to be at Engage, I believe, and you can go hang out and talk to him Thursday or Friday at noon. Anyways, I don't even know why I'm now going down that tangent. So I'm gonna check that out. But Engage, so this stuff does kind of exist. You could do sort of what Miss Minerva's kind of talking about. You could take a trip. They have some nice exhibits there and
Yeah.
sort of science experiments and stuff. And it's social, so you could gather up. Yeah, I like those guys. I'm glad they're continuing on. The funding is there. The people realize that this stuff needs to grow and is worth investing in. I'm
Yep.
super happy.
Yep.
to
And there's
see that.
there's going to be a lot of advancement, and what I'm excited about too is at San Jose State there's a college of education, so they study the process of learning and education, teaching teachers. It started as an education college. Like San Jose State's history is about teaching teachers, and so I'm not leading this research, but I'm definitely talking to the people who are doing research about, at a fundamental level, what is VR doing when we learn something in VR, and how can it be used effectively to communicate this. So it's going to be a lot of really interesting stuff coming out of there, and a lot of advancements in the field. And I think, it's going to do for our brains, I think, what we were hoping Google would do for our brains, but I think it's going to give us a richer life. And it sounds like I'm overselling, but I really feel that way. I feel like we're going to go around being much more well-rounded, much more experienced and well-traveled, and more experienced world-wise people as a species once VR gets ingrained into our educational system. We won't be looking at blackboards. We'll be looking at worlds. And I think that's a huge, huge leap. It's like almost as big of a leap as going from oral history to the movable type press. I mean, it's like that level of huge jump in what people can do with processing information. So we'll see what happens.
I agree with. Go with them now. Totally agree.
Thanks for being cool.
Wait, why are we whispering?
Because somebody
Because we don't want to be heard. We don't want some.
Because they were trying to
whisper
be
because we
polite
don't
and
want
not
somebody to hear us
interrupt, and it was
whisper.
like the whisper word heard in the metaverse.
The whisper is louder than spoken.
Pay attention. Keep up with the whispering.
I can't believe it.
Lost that tangent, but I think I read something about like weekly hacks. Do you have hackathons there at the school, or are they using VR?
Okay, so
That's part of a cult.
Yes, VR is a cult. Anyway, yes.
You have
so,
arrived.
Talking about VR mostly in terms of what I do
How
here.
about I
But
tell all your friends about what avatar you were in a few days ago?
Hey, Maya. We're doing
Hey.
something very serious.
And what avatar was I in the other day? Do tell and maybe get kicked. I don't know.
I don't think he was talking to you.
I don't know. Yeah.
He was,
So
was looking at me right in the eyes. I saw. No, you can't tell if somebody's looking at you.
yeah, other things
Yeah, John,
we do. I
sorry.
basically run all the technology labs that I have responsibility for. So we do some electronics, I'm doing some Raspberry Pi classes, and trying to incorporate
Excellent.
non-engineering students into getting their hands on Raspberry Pi or Arduinos and doing some simple projects. Really, I said basically, if you want to make any kind of art with electronics, light up LEDs to sound or do a sculpture, I'll help you do it. And got a few, it's a new program, so it's got a few students, but they're actually currently working on a dancing piranha plant from Mario Brothers.
Nice.
You know the piranha plant?
Sure.
Yeah. So it's going to be audio reactive, so it's going to be kind of sleeping until you tap it or make a loud noise. Then it's going to wake up and play a tune and dance like Baby Groot. And so we're going to make the body out of Sculpey clay, and we've got the servo. I know how to do servo stuff. It's going to be pretty simple servo, pretty simple code. And we're going to make it, and we're just going to put it out there and be like, look, these students saw this up and they made this thing. And hopefully that'll encourage other people. But today, it's starting to work, man. This is my secret method for getting these programs to work, is I'm finding who the passionate ones are, who aren't afraid to break stuff, a little bit, and just like make them like the nucleus of a little community. And I say, hey, bring your friends, bring a pizza, let's get together, let's have fun. And now it's like starting to work, and it's like the first generation of these guys come like, yeah, I heard you guys are doing fun stuff over here. So Friday he's bringing his little robot project that he's working on his own, and he's going to get some help. We've got a sound studio where people mix music and produce and design, weird sounds for soundtracks and stuff, and do beats for dance clubs and all that. So I took that, and I found a few guys that come to the library like 3 or 4 times a week on it. Going to make them the founders of the Music Producers Union. We're going to do that. I got a hip hop dance club that meets outside the library because there's like this nice marble area underneath where they put their music, and they do hip hop dance moves, and it's like a little team. So I'm like, hey, you know what we're going to do, guys? I want you guys to get together with the Music Producers Union. We're going to make a track. Then I'm going to put motion capture sensors on you. You're going to come to the VR lab. I'm going to mocap your dance moves, and I'm going to implement your dance, but you're going to be made out of fire or spaghetti or Jello or whatever. And then we're going to put it to the music, and then we're going to show it in the library. And they're like, what? How is that even possible? And these guys, their mind is blown. But I'm like, this is actually fairly rudimentary stuff, man.
Just bust
I got
a
all
move.
the Unity assets already. We can just do it tomorrow. But I'm kind of letting them. Yeah, I mean, So the challenge for me is I'm like, I just want to go into product manager mode and be like, here's what we're going to do. Here's the deadlines. Here's the task list. But that's not what this is. So education is kind of like,
inspire them, John.
Coax them with honey. Like, hey, let's get together and do it for fun. And by the way, they also have midterms and they have, they have jobs and stuff. And this is like an extra thing. But I think once they do it, once we get through this one iteration, with maybe somebody doing some electronics and somebody doing some VR and somebody doing some sound and some dance moves, and we put it all together, maybe 3D print a trophy or something, then that community is going to be locked in. And they're going to, once you get through a project,
sure,
kind of like me and this avatar, once I got through this project, I want to do it better next time, right? You do a show, the first show you did was not this good, I'm sure, right? It wasn't produced this well. You didn't have all the support, didn't have all the systems. But you go, you know what? This was good. I want to do it better. And I think that's gonna take place here at the university as well. And I definitely want to be like the Johnny Appleseed of those communities happening. I learned a lot from Carl, frankly, watching SVVR come up from nothing. Now there's like this living, breathing community, and you kind of like start that fire and let it burn. That's my job. That's not my title, but that's not what
you're
they
forming
had necessarily. But that's what I'm doing. So we'll see how long
the
that lasts before they
VR
catch on.
division is eventually what
you'll
arrive to, right? The whole VR building.
Yeah. I would love to. Yeah.
And what about the theremin?
Yeah, and so
you're working on.
Yeah,
so
when you theremin that was like an initial project, and this is like one of those things. It was a little bit of a setback because the theremin plans that they found online weren't that good. They weren't that instructive. Then somebody got a job, so somebody got an internship, so those two people couldn't meet anymore. So that project failed. But it's okay because they're still around and they're going to try to reconnect. So that's where I kind of like have to relax and let providence happen. So now, I'm sitting on a supply of photo resistors and little micro speakers, but I will find a use for them. So, we did theremin. We did that. There's a guy coming in that's got a robot that's half built.
Cool.
Put that in place.
A few other kind of topics. Bob, do you have some things on your list that you've been wanting to get?
So kind of like getting back to SVVR a little bit. So when you were working at like the expos and meetups, did you get to try any of the demos, or were you like kind of like too busy like working and making people connections?
Yeah, honestly, that was the last. I think Carl would echo this. Like when you run a conference, you don't get to go to the conference.
Yeah.
Like the last couple of SVVRs, I would run through and I would look at, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I want to go to that talk. And then, your phone goes off and somebody's got an issue or, exhibitor has a thing. And, you don't really get to like, there's never a moment, maybe like a few moments where you get to like sit down and enjoy yourself. So that's hard actually. But, it's also really satisfying. You also get to talk to a lot of people you don't get to talk to. You get to spend time with people you wouldn't normally get to spend time with. So there's trade-offs. But when you're in a conference management position, you don't get to enjoy the conference like an attendee. It's really the most intense week of your life. Like it's so draining. It's like literally 24-hour days for 3 or 4 days straight.
I mean, it's hard. It takes a lot out of you just to attend one of these events. Let alone all of that.
But then and then but the thing is then you hear from people like I've heard, Carl's heard it 100 times, like the SVVR conference is the best conference in the industry. They love it. They love everybody there. All the talks are good. The exhibitors are great. Like it's quality, right? And it feels like it's made a significant impact in the industry because over the years we can track back. There's no single point of success, but we know for a fact that many companies would not exist today if they hadn't launched at SVVR in some capacity. Whether it was the mixer or the conference, they got funded, or they got a killer demo with somebody who came on their team, or they formed a team. I mean, my favorite thing is I remember, like, I know this, like, AltSpace VR, right? The rise and fall of AltSpace and the resurrection of AltSpace. It's a great story. It's bittersweet, but it's a great story, man. It's a huge thing because of what we were doing, you know. So that's an amazing story. And the Wave demoed the VR mixer for the first time, got a lot of attention, and now they're like running their own shows and huge success. We love those guys. There's a lot of stories like that. And so that's really satisfying, I think. And I think that's one of the reasons, like, Carl and Nana are still fighting the good fight for those moments. Because they're, like I said, the things they're doing today are going to have huge ripples in the future of humanity. And it's good to have the right people doing that. So, yeah. Didn't get to do a lot of conference going, but I'm looking forward to the next one. I'm going to be a VIP attendee, and I'm not gonna. I'll pay somebody to do volunteer work.
Do my volunteer work.
So I can hang out with you guys. That's what I do at Oculus Connect. Oculus Connect, I use usually like really fun for me because I don't do a darn thing. I just walk around and
that's
talk.
kind of the thing that I loved about the SVVR expos, kind of like compared to Oculus Connect, is that with the SVVR expos, you get to try all sorts of different hardware that you won't get to try anywhere else, and like different software too, because it's all for any platform.
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
Just one.
The weird stuff, right? I mean, the last SVVR, my favorite thing was, and I'm actually sort of featured in a documentary, which is weird, about it's a French documentary about VR in Japan.
I knew VR Japan was going to come out of your mouth. I knew that.
I did too.
Yeah, right? So, in the corner, it was amazing. I mean, it was just like stuff. Like, I think I have a pretty good imagination, and I think I understand VR pretty well. And I went over there, and I was like, you guys are crazy in like the best possible way. Like, the stuff they do is just so different of a concept. They're coming at it from such a different place. Like, like I would hope Japan would, right? I mean, kind of like they're the impetus of like the anime cyberpunk vibe that I fell in love with in the 90s. And it's a little weird, right? It is a little weird. It is a little discomforting, but it's also unique and special. And also they're not doing it. Most of those guys are not doing it to make $1 billion on a leveraged startup. They're doing it because it's their passion. And I think that's where the really great breakthroughs are going to come from is the stuff that's passion projects, not like people that are going for the broad appeal. I think the people who with props and with different experiences, different perspectives, love it, man. I mean, if I could afford to go to Japan every
they're still doing
few
the SVVR
months, I
meetups
totally
over there?
would, and like hang out with the VR tribe over there because they're pretty awesome.
They had like some Asian.
And SVR has a nice relationship with SVR Japan.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, so SVVR has a Japan, I don't know what you call it, chapter, and Korea as well. So SVVR Silicon Valley extends into Asia very well, and we've got great, SVVR has great relationships with those people in both Japan and Korea and Taiwan even, but their official presence is in Korea and Japan right now. So there are people wearing SVVR t-shirts going to meetups. And sometimes they come over and we have like gatherings here, and that's really fun.
They love VR chat.
And so yeah,
our Japanese base is so
small, passionate community of really
large and
people.
They do the most sophisticated things.
Well, why wouldn't you?
And they had the language barrier and you have to deal with,
I would
deal with lots of rough around the edges, but they just built like a conference center and did this whole market over a weekend, huge sponsors, and just made it all happen and brought in like thousands and thousands and thousands of new Japan users, and it got on their TV and stuff.
Yeah.
I think we have some
it's really
small
impressive,
Russian community
actually.
too. We have some Russians as well.
Oh, we have a large Russian community and a large Brazil.
Yeah.
And there's VR chats now. I don't even know what's going on. I don't know what that guy that is in the world next to me over here, but I keep hearing them, and they're really loud in that private world, and they're doing who knows what. There's all kinds of people VR chat, and there was a day where you kind of knew everybody. Now that's not
right.
That's not
Oh
the
my
case.
God.
It's a culture. It's a civilization of its own. Many
It's like with
things
the
are being
community-
born
with
in
the-
there.
With the VR chat, basically the VR chat labs or community worlds now.
Community
it's
labs,
a Cambrian explosion of experiences. There is just, I think we've reached the point where there is no way one person could ever experience all the worlds, and it's just getting started. I don't even know where this ends, it's a good problem to have, I suppose. I'm glad.
Unity breaks it all.
Because
That's what happens. I break stuff breaks.
yeah.
We have
I know
YouTube
it's only going to keep
That's
getting bigger and better.
Wait, we have a YouTube problem.
I would love to
Yeah,
have
we
that
have the
conversation,
YouTube
but it'd be a really boring.
where we
show
produce
just-
more content every minute. We produce like I want to say 10 hours of content
yeah,
in 1
that.
minute for YouTube is uploaded every single day. We're
Oh,
getting to
VR
that
chat,
point in
total,
VR
yeah.
chat where like the community labs, like he was saying, was getting to the point where there's no way you can watch or see every single little bit of it because by the time you've already seen all of it, well, there's another 60 plus worlds that just came out. And by the time
Yep.
you get through those, there's another
Yeah.
100.
Not to mention all the private worlds that people just go into smaller circles because they haven't had a chance to upload them or optimize them yet for bigger parties.
But yeah,
Yep.
lots of private. Yeah, which is
So-
really interesting.
And I gotta say, if you look at the numbers, VR chat is saving VR. I mean, if you look at like simultaneous users and total users,
Woohoo.
it's so much bigger than any other service that I can track. Obviously, we don't know all of Oculus's numbers. You don't know High Fidelity's numbers or AltSpace
Yeah.
numbers, but like, you can kind of extrapolate from Steam. You can kind of extrapolate from various data points. When you look at the total number of installs and the daily active users, and VR chat is it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's everything else is really a rounding error on what's going on.
I've been to the others.
so-
Yeah, VR chat is king still.
Yeah.
All
And there's really good-
never recovered from when they were supposed to close down. A
Yeah,
lot of
that's
people
true.
started leaving and never did go back because I still go there every once in a while, and there's nowhere near the amount of people on there
Yeah.
now that there was before they were supposed to shut down.
think a lot
I
of
haven't been
people
back. It's
when
just
they're migrated
it's too
to here.
painful. Yeah. I mean, that's just too. I haven't been back either. It's just too painful. Another. I have a few friends that have shows over there that I should go support, but I just haven't done it. So anyway,
Yeah, I'm pretty
yeah,
proud
I
of
think VR
what's
chat's
going
doing
on
amazing
here.
work.
Yeah, it's mind blowing to see happen, and then just super proud that what did we want? We wanted people here. All right, we're gonna have our meetups, do our shows,
Yeah.
get our people
And-
excited. Boom!
and
It
speaking
launches. Desktop mode, such a big deal. Such a big
Desktop
deal.
mode is a big deal. The community labs is a big deal. And I had a brief conversation with Jesse at the VR Mixer about, what I don't want to say what's coming, but like,
Yeah, I don't know.
their plans are their plans are immense, and it's just so inspiring to know that they're still so energized to make VR chat better and better and better, and they have a long list of things they want to do. They know how to do it, and now they're just working through it. So you guys are in for some good stuff.
Yeah.
And
Cool boy.
so it's exciting to see.
You guys should
Yeah.
try to come to TwitchCon this year. Ron did last year, and he got to meet a lot of the content creators that are really pushing that content out there on platforms like Twitch and YouTube and everything
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, some of us
Yeah.
will be there. I would love to. I can't make it. And flying and all that's not gonna work for me. But yep, AnimeCon and TwitchCon, people will be there.
Hey, Gunter, just so you know, I live like about 3 miles away from the convention center. Mi casa es su casa if you can get out here.
Oh, sweet.
So,
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes.
it's usually my house is like a home for lost VR devs. Anyways, so yeah. If you don't mind a dog, I have a dog, but
we
he's
babysit dogs.
Yay!
Part of our income comes from watching dogs, so we love dogs. I love dogs.
Gunter, join us.
I don't mind leaving the wife at home while I go hang out with John and stay at his friendly place there with the nice dog too. Will dogs snuggle with me at night?
Yeah, I'm sure he would. Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
that's what I need.
They're probably really
I can't
tired of
go to sleep
hearing
without a
who
dog
let
in
the
my
dogs out, right?
Yes,
Dog.
So okay, the reality portals. I don't know if you wanted to scream at Carl. I want to know more about those reality portals.
Yeah, for sure. Carl, you still around?
Carl. Why is there
You have a
dead body
minute?
in the living room?
All right, hold on. Everyone, join hands. Join hands. Let's summon Carl. Reach your hands out.
Come on,
Okay.
Ghoster.
I want you to say it with me now. Everyone in the audience, put your hands in the air. Summon. I am going to channel the spirit of Carl Krantz
Carl
into my
Krantz.
body.
Carl
Say
Krantz.
Carl Krantz. Carl Krantz.
Carl Krantz coming. Yes.
His name is ass.
Say that 10
Oh,
times.
Baba.
Coming in.
Keep.
Wow, how did I get here? I was
Oh,
playing
you
Beat
made
Saber
it.
And suddenly I'm here. What happened?
Carl Krantz, welcome back to Gunter's
Hey,
Universe.
Gunter. Oh man, it's been a long time since I've been here.
And things just got dark. This seance that we had to do to get you in here was very, very powerful. You had no choice but to fling
was
your head
awesome.
into that
Hey
headset.
everyone. Awesome. How you guys
Well,
doing?
Krantz started up SVVR, and I've hung out with you a little bit. It's actually super weird to see you as John's
It's super
avatar, his likeness,
It's
because
weird to
that
be
does
John.
not line up. Damn it, Mr. Whiskers. Excuse me for that. Let me get rid of the seance. We had to sacrifice a cat to get you
Yeah,
here and
yeah,
all.
that is.
It's a long story.
What does this mean?
Poor kitty.
What does this mean, John?
I don't know. This is not my happenings.
Bro. No, don't do that anymore.
Oh, John, you have low poly hands. This
So
is
I have a
odd.
question.
Yeah, he
very
decimated
low
his skin.
That's what you have to do, yeah, those ones.
So it's kind of
We
weird
got
to be like
SVVR.
looking down and being in John's body.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. This is bizarre. I always leave I have a scan in high fidelity that I always leave like logged into one of the demo machines here. So I'm used to seeing other people in my skin, but not the other way around.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, it's strange your voice coming out of his skin. Definitely. Definitely VR. Yeah, so we were talking about, SVVR, of course, a bunch of that cool stuff. And Jin, or Wonton is his name here, mentioned before to ask about the reality portals. And I've known and seen these things and think they're super cool, but I actually didn't get into the details or really talk to you about them. Tell me how they work. Why did you set these up? And who did you set them up with?
Yeah, so the reality portal, it's part of we call it the multiverse initiative, but it's basically our solution for letting people attend live events as avatars and in VR in the skin that they want to be in. So currently we have it working with high fidelity, but it's architected in such a way that it should long-term work with all of the platforms. Obviously, we really, really want it to work with VR chat. And at this point, it comes down to features on the VR chat side. So the team knows that this is something we want to do. They know it has to happen, but it's just waiting for them to put in the web rendering and support for WebRTC specifically.
Yeah.
But what it does, it's an interactive telepresence system.
Sorry, one
Real world
second.
to
My
virtual
camera
world.
guy is looking at me like something's going
Camera,
wrong.
the animation for Mr. Whiskers is stuck.
It's still
for your
going.
camera.
It's still
Oh,
going.
sweet.
Yeah, it's just
Okay,
sitting there
we gotta
meowing.
toggle.
I thought you guys just hang out in
And-
here and there's cats meowing all the time. And that's
How
just
about now?
normal.
That's Mr. Biscuit.
Seriously?
It's a story.
You're all just dealing with meowing cats?
I turned off the sound effects.
Ghoster, can you do it, start it and stop it or whatever?
Yeah, I can try it.
What have we done?
Maybe
Or
Hunter
did we do it?
Is Mr. Whiskers
Now is it gone?
from beyond the grave?
No, let me go try it.
Yeah, you try it. Hang on, we've got some.
I think it broke.
I think,
Well,
I
okay, the
think
only
it
thing
broke.
is you just have a grate over your face and you occasionally see a mouth and paw wave. Yeah. But it's
I see it.
It's foreshadowing.
Hello
It's
there.
foreshadowing, okay?
But it won't. It won't. Well, anyways, that might happen, and we apologize. But continue. Tell us about these portals and how they work.
So so we've been testing this for a little over a year now with our own meetups, kind of working out the kinks. So you can join any of our monthly meetups in high fidelity right now. You just go to SVVR in high fidelity, and you will see just basically a window into the real room where all the talks are. We also just leave it up in our office most of the time, so you can kind of pop in and say hi to us at our office. It's not running right now, so don't try it now, because we're actually doing some development work as well tonight on that. But yeah, the long-term plan is to bring this to all of the social platforms, to bring it where the people are, and obviously the people are here in VR chat. This is the most active community in the social VR platforms.
We maybe transcended. We maybe have transcended though. We're so VR. We don't want to even be in real reality at all.
Yeah, actually, I
We don't want to
understand,
interact with those reality
a number of people.
people.
Have actually kind of, they say that like when you see the real world, it kind of breaks you out of the immersion. And I actually remember that myself. I used to spend a lot of time in Second Life, and I would hate it when people would bring a real picture and put it on their wall. I'd be like, "What? You're ruining everything." Or have like a real radio station playing in the background with like commercials and like current music, and I'm like, "What are you doing? You're ruining my virtual fantasy here." But it's actually very useful, and you can have conversations.
Oh,
so
hell yeah.
we've brought it out to some external events. We brought it to Maker Faire last year, and we're going to be doing that again this year. That's probably the craziest place where you can see it, because it's just thousands of people walking by all day. And so if you show up there, there's all sorts of kids and families and people coming by that you can interact with, and all sorts of fun games and dancing happens between avatars and humans.
And so
but the cool
basically,
thing-
each group that's in front of their screen or whatever the camera can see each other in real time. And is scale adjusted? Does that feel
so
right?
we try to get the scale right. Some of you may know this. Before SVVR, what I actually did was design and build telepresence systems, like really high-end enterprise telepresence systems, where we would build out like $1 million rooms and connect them together across the world. So I'm kind of taking what I learned from that and applying it to VR. The coolest thing, though, about the architecture is that right now we're doing real world to high fidelity, but the same architecture that allows that to happen and all the same servers in the back end will allow, as soon as VR chat, for example, supports WebRTC, we'll be able to open up a window into high fidelity from VR chat. So it'll be a 2D window, but it'll be very low latency,
I
real
see.
time,
Yeah.
interactive. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to walk up and talk to avatars in another virtual world without leaving the virtual world. And then we can
Well,
do
isn't
two-way,
that
three-way.
Right.
Yeah, so this is our solution, because we want our conference and all our events and everything we do one day to support VR attendees. But you can't just say everyone has to go to AltSpace for the conference. That's not fair to the rest of the industry who's using all the VR chat and all these other platforms. So we needed to do it in a way where we could have 10 different platforms connected to our conference at the same time and to each other. So this is the solution we came up with. It's still early days, but it is under active development. I was actually, while John was in here, I was actually on the phone call with a developer who's building out some additional features right now for us. And some of this is kind of waiting for the platforms to build in support. So in the case of VR chat, we're waiting for WebRTC on HTML support. But we will ideally, hopefully, bring this to Janus and VR chat and Sansar and high fidelity and anything else where the people are.
So do you see like a
So
connected
yeah, we're really
event
excited about
system
that.
going on? So like, let's say we have Gunter's Universe going. You could then go into High Fidelity, and in High Fidelity, if somebody decides to, or even, you know, one of people helping Gunter here decides to build a room just for Gunter's Universe, that you don't have to
Yes.
go to the VR chat version of it. You can go to the High Fidelity or the Sansar version or the Alt Space version of
Exactly.
Gunter's Universe, but you're still
Exactly, yeah. Because our thought on this is like everyone has their skin they're most comfortable in. If you spend most of your time in VR chat, like you feel like your VR chat avatar is you, and when you go to another world, it feels a little off. Like in the same way it feels off for me to be John right now. Right? You feel like you're not in your own skin. You're not that as comfortable. And you know you're used to it. You have your avatar created a certain way, so you know we think this is a way to let people experience things on their own terms.
Oh, it's fantastic. Really like the idea. Wonton's breaking it up for me. Can you guys hear him?
Yeah, I can't hear the question.
I think
Just
his
chopping.
machine's lagging too hard.
You're lagging. We can't hear you.
Wait, there's
Can't understand. Yeah. Yeah, you lag.
I guess you blocked me.
You're lagging too much. So it doesn't sound like that's going to clear up. We're recording too, so I'm not sure.
Until at some point, Wonton blocked.
But I won't be able to translate. I don't think. One more time. Let us hear. One more time.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's choppy.
Still a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Nope. I can hear you, but it's not good. Not good enough. We will have to. We will have to move on. What the hell? Goddamn cat!
40% loss.
I'm gonna try and bring it back up again.
Ah.
Everyone press buttons.
All right.
Brought it up again.
So cool. I like the idea that you want to expand it to. It's not just about connecting a real life location and a virtual location. It's just kind of connecting to whatever.
Yeah, so that's why we call it the multiverse initiative, where we just consider the real world as, we treat it in the same way as we treat any of the other virtual worlds. So they're all kind of equal in the eyes of the back end of this system. The only difference being that the physical world side requires some physical hardware, whereas in if we were to put one in here in VR chat, it would require a client that acts as a camera, as well as a surface to display the other side. So a web browser essentially.
No, not working.
I still can't hear you.
We won't be able to understand what you're saying.
Send me a message
I
on
don't even
Discord.
see him on. I don't even
You
see him on
can
stream.
type a message in Twitch. Yeah. I remember thinking about. Actually, was around this table years ago, thinking about something like that at a conference.
Yeah, it's actually
It'd be
quite
cool
a
if you could lean in
challenging
over
problem.
this like wishing well here at a table and look over and see other people that have like a wishing well, sort of that they could look in at and see each other up or down at.
Yeah,
which
it's a
is
tricky
totally going to
problem
be a different
because
design.
you can't just use YouTube streaming. YouTube has super high latency, so
Yeah.
it's not going to be interactive. We've actually got the latency down to about Skype level, so it's about 100 milliseconds, which is better than most phone calls actually.
Oh wow.
Nice.
And then you can have people on all different connection types because there's a WebRTC media server in the middle that kind of, that'll send, if you're on a really great connection, it'll send you the full, 1080p stream, where someone else is on a crappy connection, it'll send them a downscaled version without affecting everyone's experience.
Cool. I'm going to remind the team about this. Bring it up again.
Yeah, please do. I remind them every time I see them, and I think Jesse and Graham were both at the VR Mixer last week, along with a number of other folks from VR Chat, and we had it up there, so they got to see it in action. So hopefully that reminded them a little more. And yeah, I think everyone knows what has to happen. It's just kind of waiting for the features to get there. And my understanding is that it's more on the VR Chat side. The development focuses on security right now and just getting everything stable.
Correct. Yeah. The web part thing is a little bit difficult right now, but
yeah, and that opens up some potential security issues, and obviously we don't want to create any problems.
Yeah.
but we're ready, and you know, it's so it's not a web VR solution, it's a web in VR solution.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Cool. Well, before go back to John, any other stories or anything just happening around you recently or something to share?
Yeah, I know we're not that active on social media because we're so busy with just the in-person meet-based stuff that's happening here in Silicon Valley. But you know, we continue to meet monthly. The community continues to grow. On a day-to-day basis, our small team is more and more focused on doing kind of executive tours, so we can show you know, like C-level executives, CEOs, and CTOs. The future of VR. So we actually have a whole tour program and we bring people through. We had a group through last night and we just kind of show them the whole breadth of VR and get them excited about all the possibilities. And I think we'll have a big impact that way by kind of focusing on the business side there. Well, on our events is really our focus on the community side. So we're kind of touching everything. Our hope is to bring back the conference in 2020. We did not have the SVVR conference for the last couple of years because of the market took a little bit of a downturn, and we didn't want it to kill us if we got the numbers wrong. Which and we're not alone in that. I know VRLA is also on hiatus, and a number of other big shows had to do the same because just the sponsorship money kind of dried up, and there were too many events all at once. So we kind of wanted to let it thin itself out a little bit. But our plan is to bring it back with the reality portal in a big way. So when we do bring the conference back, it'll be a truly mixed reality conference across multiple virtual worlds and the real world.
Yeah, I would like for us to be involved
avatar
by next
speakers.
year. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
I would absolutely love for VR chat to be a big part of that. And I love this idea of having panels where you have like human panelist, VR chat avatar panelist, high fidelity panelist.
Those are going to be so cool looking.
Panelist, and they can all see and interact with each other and the audience in real time. That's our dream, and we're kind of building all the pieces to make that possible.
Now, do you think that there'll be any like telepresence robots roaming around the floor that people can log into?
We would like to connect this to that. It does add some complexity, but I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work. I know in the past, even back in like 2015 and 2016, we did have telepresence robots on the expo floor at our show, although not controlled through VR. But it seems like a no-brainer that that would be the next step once we get everything in place. I like the idea of creating like a conference that way. Yeah, I like this idea of creating a vehicle, and you get a bunch of people in VR chat, and we're all kind of in a vehicle that's physically roaming the floor together. So this way, it's like not each person needs their own robot on the floor, but you can kind of share one and ride around together and experience it together that way. I think that would be a really good experience.
People could be in a virtual cockpit of the robot head.
Yeah, or like, and in VR, it's like a hot air balloon or something, and
chaotic.
Okay, so I got Wonton's question. He was asking if you have Matterport scanned the event spaces. So I'm guessing like so that you could.
The first one was Matterport scanned, and it was in VR chat.
Yes. The first conference was definitely Matterport scanned. I think the second one was as well. I know the last one, there was a high resolution LiDAR scan done, although we never actually got the files. But who has those? Dara? Somebody has those. Yeah, they do exist. We just haven't put them to good use.
Janus also has support for the WebRTC, I guess, web service now, and it works.
Oh yeah, Wonton is the guy for me to sync up with about this kind of stuff. Yeah. It's
awesome.
Sucks he can't speak.
He was saying literally that's the stuff he's working on right now as well.
Yeah,
cool. Okay.
I had Janice folks on and some crypto sort of land real estate company and some other people trying to do metaversey stuff.
I haven't spent a lot of time in Janice lately. I did earlier on, but I haven't lately, and it's just because of time.
You got lots of homework to do. You got that. You got Neos to do. You got the other web VR stuff.
Neos, I haven't even logged into Neos once. I know I'm missing out on something there. Yeah, there's just so many worlds. It used to be just one world, right?
If you want to go jump around any of those other worlds, let me know. I'll go with you.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, let's do that sometime. That sounds good.
We can sync up with Fructius or any of those folks. James McCrae. Cool. Oh, yeah, this is exciting. I'm definitely going to go, talk about this with the crew again and see. I mean, I feel like it would be a good goal for 2020. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
This worked out by then. That I think.
Yeah, and you know, as
super
far as
cool if all
priorities
of us
go
could
on our
attend
side, VR
the
chat
best
would be the best
VR meetup.
because this is where you guys are, right? This is
That's
the
right.
one we want to
we are the best.
connect to
This is
more
where
than
a lot of
anything
people
else.
are. Yeah.
It's also the one I'm afraid of the most because we have this portal open at all our meetups, and we've never once had a problem with anyone trolling because there's just not that many people in high fidelity to have trolls yet. Or at least on any sort of scale.
Well, I'm gonna get an alt and go troll it just to be the first before
I think I just invited people to come troll our meetups, didn't I? Whoops.
Just don't challenge 4chan. 4chan, we love you. We have no problems. Please don't hurt us. Okay.
Please don't hurt us.
I've learned to stay away from 4chan.
But it's okay if you come near me. I'm totally fine with it. Just don't hurt me. Oh yeah, that's super cool. We're all gonna love that. That's exactly what we want.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I feel like we're neglecting VR chat, and it feels like a disconnect because we're physical community and VR chat is the virtual community. But we are working on the pipes to connect them.
Yeah, no, you have the mission. The thing that we all want is to connect all these developers and VR people and our friends, and then bring in all the new people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's actually been one of the coolest things about doing the reality portal at Maker Faire is because people can just walk by the screen and then they see all the avatars, so they get a sense of all the possibilities of VR and social virtual reality without actually having to put on a headset, which is a huge barrier for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, yep.
See, look, VR, it's awesome. It's 17 anime girls. They're waving at us.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have to remind people who look at this
living the dream.
SVVR portal that those are actually real people in real life?
All the time,
that are
yeah.
waiting to
Oh,
them?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, there's people don't really have like the social like model for that, so they often, if we don't explain it, they think that it's mirroring their movements, and they're like, it's not working very well because I'm moving in a different way, and I'm like, no, it's not mirroring you. That's an actual person. And then they think it's AI, and we're like, no, it's not AI. Those are actual people. Until the person is like, hello, I'm talking to you in the red shirt and the blue pants. I see you, I'm pointing at your face. And then they finally get it. Oh, you're really there.
Fun. Well, cool, Carl. Thanks so much for sharing this. And I'll be getting in touch with you and other friends, and we'll have a meetup of old crew meetup here in VR chat soon.
And I'm so happy you're still doing this. I feel like you've been in this a really long time, and we've been in this a really long time, and it's energizing to me to see you still doing this. So thank you for still doing this.
And I love hearing that.
Growing,
Thank you so much. Yep, it's it goes up and down as far as the effort, but still here, still doing it, still want to improve it.
I hear that. Same here. But
Looking for new, interesting, fun things like you're talking about there, or other things to do with our camera system. It's all really cool. So, thanks a lot, man. And we'll catch you.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna
on the flip side.
pop John back in here. We'll see if we can summon
All right,
John
we'll
back.
summon him back. Bring John back into Gunter's universe. And stick your tongue out at him. Give him money. And bring him back. Rise. Come back to.
I'm back.
Yes. We did it. The transfer is complete.
The world's first channeling of another soul in VR. Right here. You guys, history.
It really wrecks my setup when you use that kind of power.
Wow. So what's up with this cat going on? Can we let the cat out?
Oh, is the cat? He's not
still there.
Yeah, is he up for you?
Yeah,
Or?
I think he's
I see the cat.
the whole time ever since the animation started playing. It hasn't gone away for the camera either.
Oh, it's still been constant problem.
Yep. Let me try and
There's nothing. So for some of us, we see this damn cat. For others of us, we don't see the damn cat. The stream sees the cat that I'm just looking at, yelling at.
I see it now.
The cat isn't real.
Sorry,
It's
now
a button.
gone. Oh,
No, now it's back. It's a button. You're not real.
Oh, his name
I'm
is
hitting the button.
Gunter, he's real to me.
All right, now it's gone.
Now it's gone for me.
Change
How about
seats.
for the stream?
The stream?
Nope.
I still see it.
I think Hunter would have to change it. Like,
I guess Hunter has to.
And, like, press the button.
Yeah.
Well, screw that. Screw that. We're not doing all that. We just, there's just, I would put him down there, but he cries all the time. I don't want to. I'm just gonna turn my volume. No, he's crying on the stream. It's too annoying. Is he crying on the stream then? Is that what's happening?
Oh, no.
Probably, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
How is anybody dealing with this?
Yeah,
Why is there not
crying on
fire?
stream.
Yes, he is.
It's a cute sound.
Everybody likes Mr.
So it
Whiskers
kind of does
meowing.
need to be
Not
dealt
you,
with.
Gunter.
Okay, hold on one second. I just want to turn the sound down on my stream. That is worth taking a moment to do.
Squirt it with water.
Leave Mr. Whiskers alone. Or wait, is that a VR pill? I think that's VR pill. Canonically. VR pill.
Hey, buddy.
The cat there.
Okay,
It's a
how's the stream
complicated
now?
story.
Is it not have the audio problem?
Lucky my eyes don't even
Confirmed,
work.
denied.
The stream's quiet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you still hear us though? Just but damn it.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay. Lock this damn thing. Now it's happening to. Okay. Just turn your volume down if he's meowing. Fuck you, Mr. Whisker. You done?
Leave him alone. He's perfect.
He's not perfect. You don't know what he wants to do to me right now. I can see it.
He's
in his
the best.
whites of his eyes. All right, everybody, we're gonna get things kind of wrapped up here. If does anybody have questions or thoughts or concerns for Jon or about anything that we've talked about? Do we need to clarify what any of these things that we've talked?
Wow, this cat,
Yeah,
man.
I'm concerned about your care for felines.
I will. Depends on the feline. That's right. Wonton, no, we can't hear you. Yeah, it's just stuttery. I'm sorry, man. We'll definitely chat about this, and we'll talk with Carl later.
So is this,
Anyways,
is
this is just this is from an older show. Props that were built in for the Hunt for Mr. Whiskers, and it's not meant to go wrong. And so here we have a day in which the button got triggered and something's out of sync because of the alignment of the maybe today's patch, or well, I'll always try to blame it on something that's not me. It's not. I didn't do it.
This is
Well,
the
yes.
teaser for the next.
You know what?
That's what it
This is virtual reality, man. This is it. This is like a metaphor for the industry. It's like things are not ready for prime time, but they're still really cool.
They're still cool as shit.
Because, yeah, right? I mean, look, back in the old days of computers when we were just kind of like sort of getting started, things went wrong and people rolled with it, and then it got all smoothed over and people forgot the rough edges. This is the rough edge right here. This cat in a box represents where we are as an industry right here.
I think it's perfect. This cat.
It's beautiful.
And as humanity, aren't we all?
I should
Shut up.
put him.
Freedom.
I should make him a statue in the middle of the table. I think that should happen.
That's
I
a good
mean-
idea, yeah.
That would be cool. Like a little
I've had a
gold
good
statue.
time. I don't know about
right.
everybody else, but it's great
Yeah.
talking to you. And
Hell yeah.
I want to. The only thing I want to say is like, all of you that are here, you are the prophets of VR and the VR cult. You know, when you go out into the world, you give a demo to somebody who's never done it. Please be super cool. When somebody comes into VR chat for the first time, please be super cool, because we're building the culture of VR. And what we do now, your little interaction with somebody has sets the tone for every other interaction that person's going to have. And it's real, it's authentic, and it is actually impactful in a real way for the industry. So kind of encourage your fellows to be cool to people, be cool to each other. We have another chance at utopia. We'll eventually screw it up because we're human, but for now, let's try to keep it pure. That's all I would ask.
Just asking for utopia. I agree.
Yeah.
It's not much to ask.
Yeah.
Yes,
Can't ask for
please
utopia.
go forth and do VR right if you like this technology. So I'm going to stand because Mr. Whiskers is just in my face. You don't have to sit. We're done sitting. We're gonna party here in a second. But I do want to ask, do you want people to follow you anywhere on Twitter or
Twitter?
your
I guess
bank
is probably the
account?
best
I
thing. I have I'm not making a big deal of it, but I'm kind of backing off of Facebook. I used to be a big Facebook user, and I've just gotten so disappointed with what some of their choices recently. Have good friends there. I think there's good people there, but Twitter's where I'm at these days. It's Jon Virtual, Jon, the word virtual, all strung together. Please follow me. You can follow me on VR chat. My name up here. If you go ahead and friend me. I'm gonna try to spend more time on VR chat. And yeah, man. So that's it. I'm writing 2 books, which will be out
2 books
someday. Yeah, one is basically about how to make virtual things real. Basically, the workflows of designing something in VR and like getting it into either a 3D printer or unfolded, so you can take it to a wood shop or a metal shop. It's like how to actually take this table from a VR environment and take it someplace where you could actually make this in the real world. And then the other part is how to make real things virtual, photogrammetry, 3D scanning, meshes like this. That's the part I'm still working on. But but I think there's something there, and I've got some good contributors to help me out, and the students at the library to help me do some research. And then the other one is kind of a spin-off of my demo ones, which is basically an amalgamation of all the lessons I've learned from the VR startup scene: how to demo, how to market, how to get funded, what not to do, what to expect. And the challenge I'm running into there is it's sort of a moving target because the industry's changing so fast. So I'm trying to catch up to where the industry's going and what's happening in the startup scene, and then I'm gonna put it out for free. So both of these are gonna be free books. They're not I'm not gonna get a publishing deal out of it. But I think it's important. I think I'm better at the written world than sometimes the spoken word. So I'm trying to do that. So keep an eye out. I'll tweet it and we'll spread it, and maybe you'll like it.
Awesome. And while you're talking about the written word, they're over here doing sign language and connecting with each other through their gestures. I would love to know what was said, but I don't have to say that right now.
Yeah, we don't need to know.
Gunter sucks.
Or I probably don't want to know. This guy, this is how it starts, and this is how it ends. Okay, thanks so much, Jon Oakes, for coming on the show.
Thanks,
It's been great to catch up with you in VR. You can follow me on Twitter and Twitch at Gunter's Universe. Next week, I'm trying to get this really awesome guy on the show, Mike Jones. You know him as Moik the Squid in Twitch chat, and Mike. John.
I'll never get him.
He set up
he's so hard to
the
get.
Brain Fizz. Oh, I got him.
That guy's,
I have to pay him a little bit, but
that's a hot take, man. I cannot believe you got that guy. I'm coming.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Mike Jones. You know him?
Yeah.
Personally? Dude, that guy's awesome. I've only heard about him, but I heard he's awesome.
Yeah, he comes around sometimes. See if I can get him to come out next Friday.
I hope John
is he
knows
here?
I'm actually here.
Is he here?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm sitting right here.
It's Mr. Bungle. It's Mr. Bungle. He's Mike.
Hey, oh my God, it's Mike Jones.
He's got too many names.
Mike can't wear a headset right now, so I'm flat paneling it today.
Oh, pancaking. Yeah.
Hey, man.
Terrifying up close.
I like to switch it up.
You're like a
So we're gonna talk.
VR pill.
If Mike,
like
if
a
I can
VR
get Mike,
pill.
we're gonna talk about a lot of that DJ
Yeah.
stuff that you do. You're a resident DJ in the Way VR,
Oh yeah,
and
I'm a
you
DJ
created
now.
a
That's hilarious.
a haptic floor system. A floor,
Yeah, it's
and
right
it's
over
in the
there.
SVVR
Yeah.
studios.
Gunter, it's right where I'm pointing. in the
Okay,
studio.
let me go there. All right, here we go. How
It's
do I
right
get
there.
there? Is it under there?
Yeah, I was gonna turn it on, and you would maybe feel it if you were here. Yeah, he
I'm-
would be standing on it right now.
I'm the worst critic of the stuff
Oh,
that
I feel.
built.
No, that's
so
something else. Never mind. Backing up.
You would have to ask John and Carl what they think of it. I'm the worst person to ask about lore.
Damn.
So
It
Well,
it's
damn.
magic. It's magic fingers for VR. Like you know the hotel bed. You get in the hotel bed, magic fingers.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
like that, but for your whole body in VR to the beat of whatever you're doing. It's amazing.
Oh, I
Magic
I find that fascinating, and how you're using it in
Yeah, you
in
would
DJing.
specifically need to get involved with that.
Yeah, you need to come to San Jose or Mountain View and get to the studio. Also got we
yeah,
got the
I've got one in my shop too.
yeah.
Which is nearby.
Yep, just down the street.
And
from us.
you're doing all kinds. His shop is awesome. He does all kinds of cool stuff.
Are you at the
And
Hey Mike, are you at the studio right now?
Yeah, I am. What are you doing?
I'm
Chicken
gonna
wings?
Come, yeah, I'm bringing chicken wings to
thinking
your
chicken
shop.
wings?
Yeah.
there,
Shit,
look
tonight?
at that.
Yeah.
I didn't know you guys were that close.
Yeah, I blame John
Mango
for this.
habanero?
John. Yeah,
Mango
hell yeah,
habanero,
dude.
buddy.
Come on over. I need
Yeah.
some comfort
Wings
food
up.
with my eyes
Y'all
on
are-
this.
y'all are invited.
Chicken wings. I want.
You're gonna do some chicken wings.
Let's get one of those
Let's
portals, SVVR
I was
portals,
gonna
so we
say,
can
who
join you
else is-
guys.
Who else
I don't
is
know
in
where
the
the fuck I
Santa
am.
Clara area? Come by the shop and hang out with me and John.
Well, try to
Santa Clara,
if he wants to go.
Speak up if you want to go meet up. Chat or here.
Jasmine, how
and
far
we'll-
away are you? Are you too far
San
away?
Francisco. Oakland. Yeah.
Just turn on your sound effects, dude.
I was gonna
Well,
say, yeah.
Charlie,
you're-